October 25th, 1944, 7:10 a.m., the Philippine Sea. The morning sun is a bruised purple rising over the coast of Samar. Commander Ernest Evans stands on the bridge of the USS Johnston, a Fletcher-class destroyer, staring through his binoculars at the horizon. He isn't looking at clouds. He is looking at the pagodas of the Imperial Japanese Navy's center force, the largest collection of naval firepower ever assembled. 4 battleships, including the monstrous Yamato, are bearing down on a handful of thin-skinned American escort carriers. The Johnston is a tin can. Her skin is just 3/8 of an inch of steel. She wasn't built to fight battleships. She was built to screen against submarines. But Evans doesn't hesitate. Without waiting for orders from his superiors, he snaps a command to his engine room. The Johnston begins to vibrate, her boilers screaming as she pushes toward 36 knots. She pulls away from the American formation, a single tiny gray speck sprinting toward the mouth of the Dragon. Over the ship's loudspeaker, Evans' voice is calm, chillingly matter-of-fact. "This is going to be a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off now." You can feel the deck plating shudder beneath your boots as the Johnston zigzags through giant geysers of dyed water. The Japanese use colored dyes in their shells so they can track their splashes. Green, red, yellow. A rainbow of death surrounding a ship that shouldn't even be there. The Japanese lookouts on the heavy cruiser, Kumano, are baffled. They check their charts. They check their rangefinders. A single American destroyer is charging their entire line, its 5-inch guns barking like a terrier at a pack of wolves. They fire back with 8-inch and 14-inch shells, enough metal to vaporize the Johnston 10 times over. Then, at 7:30 a.m., the Johnston does the unthinkable. She reaches torpedo range. Evans unleashes a spread of 10 Mark 15 torpedoes. One of them strikes the Kumano, blowing her bow clean off. The Japanese are in shock. They think they've just witnessed a desperate final act of bravery. They watch as their return fire finally finds its mark. 3 14-inch shells from a battleship and 3 6-inch shells from a light cruiser slam into the Johnston simultaneously. The ship is mangled. The bridge is a wreck. Evans is standing on the aft deck, his shirt blown off, using his bare hands to move the rudder cables because the steering is gone. The Johnston slows, her fires raging, disappearing into a thick bank of rain and smoke. On the Japanese bridges, the officers relax. The ghost is dead. The nuisance is gone. They turn their massive guns back toward the American carriers, ready to finish the slaughter. But then, out of the black smoke of the rain squall, a bow appears. The Japanese bridge officers lower their binoculars in stunned silence. Emerging from the gray veil of the rain squall isn't a drifting wreck. It's the Johnston, scarred, blackened, and listing heavily to port, but still moving at a defiant clip. To the Japanese, it is a physical impossibility. They had seen the 14-inch shells from the Congo strike home. They had seen the explosions that should have snapped the destroyer's spine. Yet, there she was. Commander Evans, bloodied and missing several fingers from his left hand, is no longer on the bridge. The bridge is a twisted cage of shrapnel and shattered glass. Instead, he is relocated to the fantail, shouting orders down through an open hatch to the men manually turning the rudder. He is steering his ship like a Roman galley, using human muscle and raw willpower to keep her in the fight. The Johnston has no torpedoes left. She is down to her 5-inch guns, which against the armored belt of a Japanese heavy cruiser are like throwing pebbles at a brick wall. But Evans doesn't care about armor. He cares about distraction. He orders his gunners to aim for the soft spots, the bridges, the radio masts, the secondary batteries. The Johnston begins a rapid-fire barrage so frenetic that Japanese survivors later reported they believed the ship was equipped with automatic 6-inch cannons. The air around the Johnston is thick with the smell of cordite and burnt paint, the ship vibrating so violently from its own gunfire that the crew can barely keep their footing. Suddenly, Evans spots a new threat. A squadron of Japanese destroyers, led by a light cruiser, is closing in on the American escort carriers to deliver a finishing torpedo blow. He realizes that if those destroyers reach their launch point, the American fleet is doomed. He looks at his mangled ship, then at the enemy squadron. He has 1 engine left, he has half his guns, and he has a crew that has been pushed past the point of human endurance. "Intersect them," Evans commands. The Johnston veers away from the main battle and charges directly into the path of the entire Japanese destroyer squadron. It is a David and Goliath moment repeated, but this time, David is already bleeding out. The Japanese lead captain is paralyzed. He assumes this ghost ship must be the vanguard of a massive American surface fleet hidden in the smoke. Why else would a lone, broken destroyer charge 7 fresh warships? Fearing a trap, the Japanese destroyers launch their torpedoes prematurely from extreme range, all of which miss the American carriers, and turn their full attention to the madman in the Johnston. For 3 hours, the Johnston has been under constant fire. She has been sunk by the Japanese 3 separate times in their logs. But as the smoke clears again, the Japanese gunners see the same battered silhouette, its guns still spitting fire, refusing to go under. 9:45 a.m., the Samar Sea. The Johnston is no longer a ship. She is a floating scrap heap. She has been hit by hundreds of rounds of varying calibers. One engine is dead, her top speed has crawled down to a mere 17 knots, and the deck is so hot from internal fires that the soles of the sailors' boots are melting. Yet, through the haze of blood and oil, Commander Evans sees a Japanese destroyer closing in for the kill on the defenseless carrier Gambier Bay. Evans barks one final defiant order. Fire across their bow! Keep their heads down! The Johnston interposes herself between the carrier and the enemy, absorbing the fire meant for her larger sister. By 10:10 a.m., the end is no longer a possibility. It is a mathematical certainty. The Japanese have finally surrounded the Ghost. 5 destroyers form a circle around her, like wolves closing in on a wounded stag, and begin to pour point-blank fire into her hull. At 10:10 a.m., the order is finally given. Abandon ship. As the Johnston begins her final roll into the abyss, the survivors bobbing in the oil-slicked water witness something that haunts them for the rest of their lives. A Japanese destroyer, the Yukikaze, slowly cruises past the sinking wreck. The American sailors, terrified, expect to be machine-gunned in the water. Instead, they look up and see a Japanese captain standing on his bridge. He isn't reaching for a weapon. He is standing at rigid attention, his hand snapped to his cap in a sharp, solemn salute to the dying ship. He has watched this tin can fight for 3 hours against an entire fleet. And in the Bushido code of the Japanese officer, he recognizes a spirit that transcends war. Commander Ernest Evans is never seen again. He goes down with the ship he refused to let die. Of the 327 men who sailed into the mouth of the Japanese center force, only 141 are pulled from the water. But their madness worked. The Japanese Admiral Kurita, convinced by the Johnston's ferocity that he was facing the entire U.S. Third Fleet, ordered a retreat. The Ghost had saved the American beachhead at Leyte Gulf. Decades later, when the wreck of the Johnston was finally discovered 20,000 feet down, the deepest shipwreck ever surveyed, she was found exactly as she had lived. Her guns were still trained toward the enemy, frozen in a final act of defiance against the dark.